Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reimagined Together, where every week I go live with a wide array of speakers to have deeper conversations about what a thriving humanity future really means and the little steps that we can take today to bring about a better tomorrow. My name is Carley Marcelle, and I help individuals and organizations to see the new world, play by a new set of rules, in order to make a shift, a very important shift into what I call thriving humanity brands. I'm a speaker, a coach, a matchmaker, and the founder of a new ecosystem called the Matchuteen Experience Network. Matchuteen is Old English. It means the moment before dawn. If you would like to learn more about me or the network as things get moving, then you can check the links below this video. If you like this kind of content, then please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, and spread the word. And now we can go forward with today's episode, which I can't even find words. I'm so excited. As we are in the middle of a very important week in the United States of America. We are in the middle of election week. There is no better time than right now to be talking about what it really means to lead and how leadership is changing. And I am very blessed to have a guest today who is an incredible human being who truly embodies what is possible, our leadership potential. And he's the author of a book called The Leadership Revolution, because evolution just takes too long. And his name is Brian Cunningham. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and meet Brian. Hello, Brian.
Good morning, Carly. It's just so great to be with you this morning.
It is so nice to have you here. It's just like I can't think of a better conversation to be having on this day. So thank you for being available for it, and without any let's just jump right in.
Sure.
Oh, actually, no, let's not jump right in. First, can you please introduce yourself so that everybody can know? If you could just tell us a little bit about I was too excited. You see, this is
yes,
what
me
happened.
too.
Yeah. If you can just tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now, where you've been, and what you care about.
Well, where I've been, I think I've been to the same place that you and most of us have been. I grew up confused about the world, confused about what was going on. And, you hit your teens and 20s and what's really going on. I had this sort of nagging, desire to understand what was going on. I mean, we can see, out and what people are telling us. We can sort of sense the programming we're being fed. But, I, like you, and I'm sure so many others, had this sort of deep feeling that, wait, no, what's really going on? What's beneath that? So I grew up confused, but with a desire to try to understand a little bit more deeply about sort of these deeper realities that are impacting our worlds. And so I got into the work world, and just like everybody else. And I started in a large hospital in Philadelphia. Back in the day, I was a parking lot attendant at that time, and started to enjoy really working in that environment, the healthcare environment. And I've worked at every level in healthcare, and along the way, I was also studying and reading, and reading everything I could about spirituality and personal growth, and later on leadership and indigenous peoples, and just trying to understand. And I was just in awe of what certain people knew about the world or their experience. So as I was moving through this really practical part of our lives, moving through the workplace in these different roles, and I was sort of reflecting on what I was seeing and sort of attempting to integrate all of what I was seeing and experiences in my personal growth work with the workplace. Again, I was very confused in life early on, but I was just awake enough to start to see a little bit and start to look at and compare what I was studying, these great, spiritual giants and philosophers and humanitarians, and looking at my workplace and the people I was working with and my friends and family. And over time, I started to see things. Over time, I was sort of directly looking at this leadership followership dynamic in a very different way. You know, things, as you know, as you stare at things in life, things emerge from the background. You can see. It's like, remember back in the day, Carly, those pictures with all the dots, like a poster with all the dots.
Yes.
And you stare at them, and you stare at them, you're like, and then all of a sudden, like a dolphin comes forward out of the, or something, you know, a turtle or something. You're like, oh, I see it. It's like that. So when we stare at reality, you know, things will begin to emerge if we're committed to that. So, you know, that's sort of where I came from, just as confused as anyone else. But I was just awake enough to see something wasn't right here. What I'm being told is not the whole truth. And so I just kept staring at it, and things started to emerge. And through that work, I became, you know, much more clear about who I am, my purpose. You know, it took me too long in life to figure that out, you know, to figure out why I'm really here. And once I was clear about that, you know, it was like, look out. I knew why I was here. It is to love, grow, and serve others, period. It didn't matter what my role in that was. And, you know, but life keeps pulling you forward. I was moving forward in the workplace and went back to school several times for different degrees and clinical degrees, and went back for my business degree to understand, you know, all that. But it was in the context of the larger picture of what's really going on. And what are we truly here to do as a leader? As I started to see that that was the pathway where I could serve more people. So that's kind of the short, boring version of it, right? I got confused, waking up, right? And I think what finally woke me up even more was, Carly, I just got tired of my own drama.
Oh, right.
Tired of my own drama. I had bought in. Fun. No, I had bought into some degree to all the drama I'd been fed, and I'm a victim, and I was so good at it. I was so good at the drama. I even got sick of myself, and I was like, wait, this isn't it. So I got tired of my own drama. That's what sort of spurred me on, and through that awakening process and that commitment to that level of work, I've just continued to grow and continue to serve. And, you know, that's what I'm doing now, looking for opportunities to serve, looking to contribute to the larger conversation on the planet, you know, about who we are and what we're here to do. What are the real possibilities of our leadership service to each other? And when I say leadership, I want to be clear. I'm talking about leadership, you know, that big picture.
Yes.
Everybody's a leader.
Yes.
Everybody serves as a leader. This leadership followership thing is truly just two sides of the same coin. There is no separation here. So when I say leader, you know, if you're a brother, mother, father, spouse, whoever, you're functioning in a leadership role in the largest sort of perspective of that term. So that's where I've been, that's where I'm going, and I'm here right now.
Yes, we're here right now.
I'm here to learn and grow and serve, and I can't wait to learn from you today.
Great. I'm still finding our starting place here, but I have to call out something that you said that I think was such a beautiful visual that is so true when it comes to the waking up journey. And there's a lot of confusion around, you know, what does waking up really mean? Blah, blah, blah. And I struggle to even put complete words on it. Words don't do the process justice. Yeah. I think it's just something we experience, but the best visual that I think I've seen is that the image of all the what are they called? What are those things called?
I don't know.
Oh my God. Yes, I used to love them growing up.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what it is, because it's like nothing. It's like it doesn't make sense. You don't really know what you're looking at. Like there's this thing, and then one day, all of a sudden, you see this incredible image within it.
I can't see it. Then one day.
And one day it's there, and then that's all you see.
And then you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. No matter how hard you try. I've put on blinders over here. I've tried to turn my head in certain directions. And I'm like, nope, it won't go away. So, for the good. Yes. But there are days that it's not an easy journey either.
No, it is not.
So, okay, leadership, the journey of leadership, where we're going. Let's take a moment before we talk about potential and all of the what it means to lead and how we're evolving and everybody being a leader. Let's look at today, the reality of kind of where we're at, and how do you see leadership reflected, obviously, as we were saying, in the moment right now,
Yeah.
in the United States, but also in the world. How do you think most of the population, most of us see and are trained to understand leadership at this point in time?
You know, you said the key right there. How are we trained to see it? So the question, how do, I think we people see leadership? Well, they see it through the programming that they've been fed. I mean, that's just how it works. That's not a good or a bad thing. That's how the world moves forward. Programming doesn't mean bad. There's plenty of programming that we receive about, who we are and in the world that is very beneficial, very productive. But there's also some programming that's, not as productive and quite dysfunctional and quite harmful to people. And it always has been. This is nothing new. So most people will see leadership or understand and express leadership through the dominant programming that they've been receiving, and until they learn and grow from there. And this is obviously not a theory. We're living it. We are coming out of most countries, the industrial age, and grounding in the information age. Right? There's a transition happening right here, right now. And it doesn't happen like that. It's a long transition, So we know that the industrial age, my goodness, built our country and built countries and did all this amazing stuff. Right? The things the mass production, the mass projects that occurred, unprecedented. It's incredible stuff. However, the predominant leadership approach that comes out of that sort of societal understanding of the world was and is authoritarian leadership. And all of its subtle sort of expressions, from that incredibly dominant, almost tyrant in nature, to more subtle attempts at controlling others. And so the authoritarian leadership approach, once again, it's not good or bad. It's just the approach that is reflective of the level of awareness of society at any given time. So, this authoritarian approach to leadership, as we know, when you talk to, back in the day, you were seen and not heard, and in the workplace, you didn't ask any questions, and you just did your job, and that's just the reality of most people. It comes from that level of awareness about who we are and what we're here to do together. So here's this authoritarian approach to leadership that is the dominant programming for leadership across the planet. Even though many societies are well into the information age, there's still a dominance of that industrial age mentality. So, how do people see leadership? Well, they see it through that lens. Once again, that doesn't make them bad or wrong.
Right.
Authoritarian leadership is not bad. It's just limited in its ability to move us forward as we evolve along into increasing complexity. And so, as we've moved, and many people have grounded themselves in the information age also sort of facilitates or reflects an approach to leadership that is equal to the increase in complexity in the information age. These expressions of leadership mirror the complexity of the predominant age. So in the industrial age, there was a level of complexity, and leadership mirrored it. And it's the same in the information age. So where authoritarian leaders are committed to the control of others, they gain their power by controlling others. Whereas in the information age, the expression of leadership is evidence-based leadership, right? The information age is about data and information and the latest evidence, and you get to understand so much more about reality. But evidence-based leadership is also limited. It expands our ability to see a problem from multiple more perspectives and to gain more insight, but it is still anchored in the mind, where authoritarian leadership is anchored in emotion, and that emotion is typically fear.
Yeah.
Typically fear. And the evidence-based leadership approach is based in that, left side of the brain, logic side, must be right. Evidence-based leadership uses its need to be right to control others. So both levels of leadership are really subtle forms of each other and are focused on controlling others. Level one, through authoritarianism and positional power or fear. And level two is about, left side of the brain. Look how smart I am. I got this and this and this, and I will convince you or coerce you to understand and accept my opinion of reality. So both are similar. Evidence-based leadership's a little bit more expanded out of the information age. But this is what we see. So now when we can look and superimpose that on what's happening, we see this everywhere. We see it at the level of politics on a local, national, world stage. We see it in families. We see it in the workplace. We see this battle between, I have to control you. That's the only way I feel comfortable in my power. And the other group, mostly the millennials get accused of this. These incredible human beings are millennials. That they got all the tech going, and they're going to tell you how they're right, and they're going to show you how, and they'll try to dominate you with their rightness. Not just millennials. Anybody does that.
Yeah.
So to sort of wrap that in a little bit of a bow, what the norm is, the status quo of leadership understanding and expression out there is expressions of either authoritarian leadership or evidence-based in any one of their more subtle expressions. There are many levels of each, but you'll see this: attempts at positional power, attempts at using emotions, fear. What do we see out when we look at our, anything, workplaces, politics, families? Fear. And on the other flip side of that coin, we see, this attempt to convince others. No, that's not right. This is right.
Right.
You could say one's better or worse, or you could vote for this one or that one. But the reality is, it is merely a reflection of our predominant societal awareness. And we can understand it from that perspective and position ourselves to step beyond that. Just because that's the predominant level of awareness does not mean that has to be our level of awareness or your level of awareness. So that's what I see, and it's based on this evolution that we're living. It's not really a theory. We can look right at it.
Right. Absolutely. So that the evidence-based, that is in your, which level is that? Two. So it's just, we're just at the second level. So in Brian's book, he speaks of the 9 levels of leadership. 10. Oh, did we get to 10? Oh, yes. Oh no, I missed that one. Shoot, I'll have to go back, grab it. The 10 levels of leadership. And here we are at 2. So now I know I'm trying to think here. Before we get back onto the level journey, because I want us to look at all of these different levels.
Sure.
But to talk about kind of let's take some time to talk about awareness. Your quote that I pulled out, and everything that I care about. Our experience in life starts and ends with our awareness. Yes. And you speak of the awareness quotient.
Yes.
We have the intellectual, our IQ, our EQ, and now this idea of the awareness quotient. I've heard rumblings before in other areas, the spiritual quotient. What is this? Can you walk us through what that is and how its relationship to the leadership evolution?
I'd be happy to, Carly. So you started with a quote. Life, everything. It all starts and ends with our awareness. And everything in between is a function of our awareness quotient. Mm-hmm. And so we'll use that sort of the foundation for this part of the discussion. In leadership, in life, we've seen, of course, this same evolution. Back in the day, experience was the most important element of, our value and our worth to society.
Yes.
Industrial age is all about my experience. So leaders and people in power would hoard experience, didn't share their knowledge, their experience, right? Because that was their power. And along comes the information age and blew that, blew the doors off that. That does not mean experience is still not important. It's still very important, but it's not the only thing. And it's not enough to get us through the complexity that we face these days. So then became this focus on left brain IQ or industry IQ, right? You got to be really smart. So business schools opened up and, trained all these people, and they created all these new problem-solving methodologies, TQM and Lean Six Sigma, all this stuff, slick stuff for understanding and moving forward moving forward in challenges. And that moves things forward. And we built stuff and invented stuff and innovated stuff. But that still wasn't enough, right? It works for a while, and then we find ourselves wanting again. And we became, smart enough as we moved into, sort of level 3 coaching leadership, this next evolution from industrial age to the information age to the knowledge age. Knowledge age connects left and right hemispheres of the brain, the creative side of the brain, where we can see things more holistically, see it from a system standpoint, how things are connected. So, we moved into that really balanced IQ or industry IQ, balanced whole holistic, approach with the mind. But that's not enough. With the mind, we can change things, but it takes our heart to be able to move into a transformational experience. So as this need continued to confront us, we saw people start to write about, Daniel Goleman in the 90s wrote about emotional intelligence and our EQ. So that became, an important, and people jumped on that, and it's a great thing, right? So now we're bringing our heart into the equation, and this moves us into that sort of level 4, into that transformational leadership experience. And so now we're connecting our minds with our hearts, using and leveraging our experience, balancing left and right hemispheres of the brain, connecting with the heart. And now we're in a position to connect with the minds and hearts of others. At level 3, we can change things. At level 4, we can transform things. We must have the heart. Change makes things different, while transformation makes us different. And that's what people have been craving. And so, we've seen transformational leadership, that term sort of, come into vogue over the last 20, or more years. And this is a real thing. Although there are only a small number of real practitioners of it, real people that embody it and live it out. Right. Most of us are in that level 1, too. So as I was going along this journey, okay, and I can see and sense and understand how this is all integrated, experientially. But the universe continues to pull us along. Our intellect and our emotions are only, aspects of us, important aspects of us. But something sort of something was trying to emerge from the dots, Something was, I could see it, I could see something, and then it finally emerged, and that was the obvious, right? It was our awareness. It all starts and ends with our awareness, not our intellect, not our emotions. These are powerful teachings, right? Powerful bodies of information, and incredibly valuable, that we're paying attention to the well-being, the emotional well-being of others. This is, a huge jump in our abilities to serve each other. But it's not the foundation. And so each time we evolve, we go, okay, here's the foundation. It's not in our experience, it's not in our IQ, and it's not in our EQ. What became clear to me, what emerged to me, was that the foundation is in our awareness, and that our experience, our IQ, and our EQ actually are components of our awareness. And it's our awareness that actually flows into and informs and enlivens our experience and our IQ and our EQ. This is really sort of the foundation. And this is where, some people will call this spiritual quotient, or, we're playing in that same realm.
Right.
And I appreciate that term. I
like awareness.
Purposely stay, a little more practical term. And then we can sort of understand what it is when we talk about awareness being the foundation of who we are. Our awareness is it's really the miracle of our perception, our ability to perceive all that's available to us in this field of consciousness. That's another word that sometimes people interchange, consciousness or awareness or attention. But the field of consciousness is the entire field of possible experience that we can have as a human being. And our awareness is more our individual. It's like a light that we can now look into and explore the field of consciousness. It's our uniqueness as a human being is tied to our awareness. So our awareness is the driver for all of this. And we can now see that, through the lens of our awareness quotient. What makes up our awareness? And when you stare at it long enough, at the dots, it just shows itself to you. And what you'll see and what we can experience is there's really 4 key domains to our awareness quotient, right? Our awareness quotient, the sum of all of the important aspects of our awareness. Our IQ, the sum of the measured, elements of our intelligence. Our EQ, the sum of the key measures of emotional well-being, right? So our AQ is the sum of this measure of the 4 key domains of our awareness. And they are our depth and clarity of perception with our internal environment, our beliefs, our thoughts, our words, our feelings, our emotions, our bodily sensations, the control, the inner control of our bodily movement, right? Our whole inner world. Our emotions sit in there. They certainly aren't the whole thing, right? And so our internal environment. It's also the depth, clarity of awareness of our external environment. Everybody that's out there, their thoughts, their beliefs, their emotions. Also nature, our surrounding environment, and very importantly, our social institutions and our social constructs, right? These man-made sort of ideas of what reality is, what objects mean, what ceremonies mean. So there's all this stuff happening out there in the external environment that level of awareness we can bring to that. When we bring our attention and focus into there, we can get more clear about what's going on. The more clear we are about what's happening inside, the better we're able to express our best self.
Definitely.
So we got our internal environment, our external environment. The next domain is this critical integration between our internal and external. I could be solid with my understanding of myself, maybe even solid with, okay, yeah, I pretty much get what's going on out there. But how do I interact with that, Carley? How do I dance with that? And as a one of your talents as an actor, right? This is really a dance. You start to sense this connection between these sentient objects out there and how we move with that and how we influence that. I mean, this is really deep stuff and has such a huge benefit. Very practical too. This is not like esoteric woo-woo stuff. We can go way out there with it, but it's practical for everyday activities of daily living. And then the 4th domain of our AQ is our depth, clarity of awareness of the deeper purpose of life itself, right? This is our connection, the very real connection to the source of our being and doing as a human being. And again, you could look at this through the lens of spirituality or religion, but you could also view it through the lens of science and modern physics and quantum mechanics.
Definitely, yeah.
So this sort of threads the needle. Our AQ threads the needle between theories and opinions. I mean, it just is what it is. And when we ground ourselves in our AQ covers, if you think about it, every aspect of our life, internal, external, the connection between, and this understanding and connection with the deeper purpose of life itself. It really incorporates the whole of life and then informs all of our actions and interactions. And once again, our experience and our IQ and our EQ, all those other cues.
Yes.
So that's sort of the summary of it.
Yeah, just sort of the way the world works.
Yeah. And when we understand that, we're now in a position. We don't have to figure it all out. We don't even have to know the names of the terms, because in reality, we're working with our AQ every day. You, me, everybody else. We don't need to understand the terms. But when we do, and more importantly, when we understand how they function and interact, Now we're in a position to leverage this and move more deeply into our life and create experiences that are more in line with our vision for our best self.
Yes.
So IQ is great, EQ is great, all that's great. But for those that are ready to go even deeper into the foundation of it all, it sits awaiting.
Yes. And what comes to mind also as you speak to all of this, we look at our IQ and our EQ, which is needed to be developed, obviously, for many reasons. And I don't think that our consciousness was elevated enough as a collective and even individuals to where it's, I don't know that we could really go into that kind of awareness, that I don't know. I'd be curious to hear your opinion actually at what point is awareness available to us? Mm-hmm. And the idea, also what I'm hearing and seeing in this trajectory is the awareness is what accelerates everything. It's what allows us to fully dive into, to integrate. Without it, we are forever limited at level 1 and 2. We can't go anywhere else. That is the, like you said, the emotional, the fear-based of authoritarian leadership. It's dealing with emotions, and then we're dealing with the mind, with our intellect, which will forever be limited because the grand knowledge, everything that there is to know in this world is known at this time. It's like a little pinhead. So we'll forever be working off of a pinhead. Yes. So I would love to hear you speak to kind of when awareness fuels in this, right? How it catalyzes this entire journey and allows just how it affects the acceleration. And at what point, is there a point? Is it always available to us, or is there a point? Is there something that needs to happen before the awareness can be turned on?
Great question. Let's get into that and clarify. So we are all aware. Everybody's aware. So everything exists along a continuum. Everything exists, all living systems exist along a continuum, and they exist along a developmental progression. So there's a continuum to this. We are all aware, everybody. And we are all, some people would say we're all conscious. We're all aware in the field of consciousness. Consciousness is everything. So we can't not be in consciousness. And we can't not be aware, right? If we're here. So there are levels of awareness. When we talk about leadership levels or societal levels, we are always fundamentally talking about awareness. And that's one of the challenges. If we talk around the issue, our progress is much slower. That's the slow evolutionary approach, right? The revolutionary approach is to get to the foundation, and that is awareness. So we are all aware.
Right.
The question is, what is our degree of awareness in any given moment? This is the tricky part and the interesting part. So, here's my awareness. It's a ball, and here it is right now. And different things happen in our lives that, either expand our awareness or further contract our awareness, right? Any type of fear, resistance, right, contracts our awareness. We've all been there, right? We see it all the time. And when that happens, we sort of shy away from the world or strike back at the world, right? But our level of understanding, our level of acceptance, and our level of choice is limited to the degree that our awareness is limited. And so, that's the outcome of that. We also have experiences in life that expand it, right? Falling in love, the birth of a child, the death of a loved one. We have these experiences that all of a sudden we can sense sort of catch a glimpse of, wow, this is what's really going on. So most people have had really incredibly expanded experiences in awareness temporarily. Life happens and this happens. An accident, a trauma can really, really expand awareness. Oh, yeah. Same thing in our sort of our mundane life. In our leadership, things happen sometimes, and we perform at level 10. I mean, most leaders have performed at every single level. 1 through 10. It's not this secret place only, to the chosen few. We've all experienced this stuff.
Right.
The challenge is it's not our default level. So we will experience it, birth of a child, death of a loved one, and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to look and take for granted this or that, right? And then a day later or a week later, or, here we're back in our default mode. But maybe not all the way back, right? This has a little bit of a lasting effect. So we're all doing this thing. It's like the spiral dynamic. It's not a straight line, linear path. Here I am, or a binary choice, right? That's level 1, 2, this or that. I'm either aware or I'm not, awake or asleep. It's not that. We're all aware, we're all awake in degrees, and it happens in this sort of spiral dynamic. We are revisiting and revisiting and relearning and expanding outward and coming back, and this thing just moves along very slowly if we're not really aware of the levers and the underpinning. So we're all aware. We're all experiencing incredible things all over the continuum. And yet we have a default level that will come up for us, often in a challenge. Would you say to me, Carley, who you looking at? That kind of stuff. When somebody, that's the challenge, as a leader or as a human. Can you do it, Carley, when somebody, right here and maybe frustrated or upset or scared, and they've fallen into their default programming? Will they pull you into it? Do you have sort of the grounding in higher levels? Have you practiced enough so that becomes your default level? Have you experienced it enough so that your awareness stays out here and you can see this person for who they really are? Scared, confused, beautiful, a reflection of you, and me.
Yes.
So this path of awareness, right, is a spiral dynamic. It's going out and in, at any time we can do amazing things. Real question is, what's our default? What's our typical mode of operation?
Right. There was a coach that I had back in the day, an acting coach, and he, all of the actors would always, I don't know, maybe I've shared this story with you before, but all the actors would always complain that when they go into an audition room, the casting directors and the producers and all the people in the room are being rude. They're not paying any attention, and they're like, I'm trying to go in and do a scene about where, my dad died and my whole life's falling apart and I'm on this boat and everything's apart. And meanwhile, the producer has got like their phone beeping and their dog's barking outside. And, and so these actors would come into my coach and just like complain and be like, why isn't it perfect? And he's like, oh, no. You guys don't get this. When we come into the rehearsal space, when you're coaching with me, we are working within a protected space that's quiet, to where you can work on that awareness, to where you can really practice the skills, get much stronger at them, so that when you show up in these other environments in the world, you're not rocked.
That's it.
And that's the preparation, is never to get to a place where, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden nobody's going to disrespect me. Now all of a sudden, everybody's going to be kind, that everything. No. It's internally preparing so that you are not impacted by and drawn into and taken off course, so that you can be aware and present and bring a scene to life. And this is in the fictional world, but I think it's the same thing when we look at our everyday lives, so that we can be present and bring our lives, realize our lives in a healthy way, at their highest level, at their highest performance, with no matter what's happening.
Yeah, that's it. That's 100% it. We can develop practices that, in a controlled environment, but ultimately, if we cannot do it in the reality of our world, where the blood and sweat and spit, everything's hitting the fan, what good is it if you can sit in a cave and meditate, or go to an ashram and hold peace, if we cannot do it and serve each other through the challenges that people are experiencing? It's of limited value to the larger world.
Yes.
That's your path of growth that you need, this time around, that's okay. But if you're here to serve others in the world, we have to be able to do it where it counts, right in the middle of it.
Absolutely. And actually, while we're kind of in that direction, because as much as I want to dive into all of the theory, I want to go into all of the aspects of your book, but maybe we can touch on them as we start to take in the spiritual world and the awareness, not just spiritual, but personal development, right? However you want to look at becoming a better human being, becoming a better leader, finding extraordinary within your life so that you can bring extraordinary into the collective. When we are on that journey, there is a very real moment, I think, that we all come into where there is this like, okay, I've been working on it within my safe space, the safe space of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm very aware, right? Before I was maybe kind of sort of aware. I saw it, but I was like, nah, I can kind of ignore it most of the time. Then you get to a place where you've worked on it so much in yourself that you are highly aware of the disconnect. And then you come into the workplace, into the environment, into today's world, and it is not operating by these principles. It is not. It's not there. And I think there's a moment right now, for me anyways, what I've noticed is we're stuck. There's a lot of stuckness in this place.
Yeah.
To where I found a lot of people who have done a lot of work on themselves and are very far along on this leadership journey.
Yes.
And are starting to bring it into the work. But there really is we're meeting the stories and the systems that are working against it, that are still stuck in these older models, in denser vibrations and a lower level of consciousness. So as business leaders, I mean, if you can just speak to a little bit some of the barriers that we face as leaders as we start to go on this leadership journey that maybe get us stuck at this point, right? To where it feels like it's this transition is so interesting to me and so important, and I feel like we're about to break through, right? How do we bring this work across into the reality, into the systems and the stories at a more collective level?
Got it. Great, important question, Carley. So, and this is where our fundamental understanding, this is, really the leadership revolution. It's really a revolution in our understanding of leadership, our ability to express it. So this is where this comes into play. As you said, even though the predominant understanding and expression of leadership is somewhere in this level 1, level 2 area, there are some phenomenal leaders out there. There always have been. Always. In every age, there's always people out ahead of the crowd, out ahead of the status quo. Always, smaller number. So when we say predominant, there's some great leaders out there. And on my journey, I told you I read everything. Well over 1,000 books on just constantly reading, studying, researching. But then there came a time where I couldn't find the level of integration I was looking for to break through the challenges that you're talking about. It was my experience. It's not a theory. I was experiencing the same thing. And I was reading some great books. I think every one of them I loved. I go, wow, this is it. This is it. And then I'd go and try to practice, and oh man, it's actually only works in this scenario. And if the world doesn't cooperate, right? When we talk about our internal and external environment, we have a little more influence. As hard as it is to come to understanding internally and start to work with that, the external world, right? That's got its own set of rules. You can't tell somebody else what to think and point out, hey, by the way, we're here to love, grow, and serve each other. That's not how it works.
Right.
The external world has its own set of rules. Our social institution, our social constructs. We might figure it out, but the external world is doing its own thing. Even though it is part reflection of us, there's a larger thing going on here. So leadership researchers will say, okay, yeah, I found this new thing or this new thing, and now here it is. This is leadership, and we can practice it, this aspect of whatever, name it, clarity of vision or better listening, or that's one of thousands of the skills we need as a leader. So they may help me become a little bit better as a leader, but they don't break through that stagnation that you're talking about. So as I stared at this thing, what came forward out of the dots, the colored dots with the dolphin and the turtle and everything else, what came forward was, oh, wait a minute. Everything in life, every living thing grows along a natural developmental progression. Everything. little tadpoles, humans, everything. As humans, we need to crawl before we walk and walk before we run. To become an actor, right? There's a progression that you have to go through in school, right? You can't go from kindergarten to PhD work. There's a natural developmental progression. In sports, right? You can't, be Michael Jordan out of the gate. There's a progression to learn anything. And people know this, although they may not call it that. You go to join something, a club, acting club. If I go, they're going to teach me, right, how to be a tree or a squirrel, whatever the progression is for that. Same with any sport. So everything grows along a developmental progression, except leadership. That is the one exception to the rule for some reason. And it's part because the programming around it, the way it's set up, and because it is still steeped in holding power over others.
Right.
So, right, there's some other issues there. So we know it became obvious that everything in life grows along a progression. And when you understand the progression, you can move along in your acting with much more ease and grace. You can move forward in the sport or in the club or in the hobby that you're involved in. Everything progresses along a developmental progression. And when we understand that, we can step into that natural flow of life, move with more ease and grace. And so this is the two components are our awareness quotient and an understanding of the developmental progression of leadership. So the leadership revolution, the AQ model of leadership development, is an understanding of the progression, levels 1 through 10. And once again, they're not arbitrary words. They mirror the levels of awareness that society has always been going through and continues to go through today. So they're a reflection of levels of awareness. They're not sort of arbitrary. So it is through this understanding of awareness and the developmental progression that positions us now to move others, to start to move others along. If we don't know the progression, all we can do is go, okay, I read an article. Let's try this, team. And maybe it works to a degree, or it works with 2 or 3 of them. I mean, let's pick one. Servant leadership, that concept. In my understanding, as I see it in the progression, that's level 5. This is high level leadership. Comes out of the wisdom age, right? Experience leads to information, which leads to knowledge, which leads to understanding, which leads to wisdom. Level 5. Servant leadership is the expression of our wisdom. So you can read a book or an article, and somebody will come to work and say, we all need to be servant leaders. Here it is. This is what it looks like. This is how you do it. And it's like, okay, yeah. Well, then, if we've all read the book on servant leadership, how come we're all not servant leaders? And it's because there's no awareness or acknowledgement of the developmental progression. If I am at level 1, Carley, a level 1 leader, a level 1 actor, and you try to say, well, just be a level 5 leader or actor, whatever we want to call it, I won't be able to make that jump. If it's basketball, I can't be Michael Jordan on day 1. The task, the challenge, the responsibility of leaders, coaches, teachers, mentors is to understand the developmental progression in their area and be able to see and understand people and meet them where they are and then move them along. Very challenging dynamic, especially in a group at work where you got people all over the place. How do you move the whole thing forward? It's very challenging work. But it is the challenge and duty and responsibility of leadership. So long story, but the missing piece is the understanding of the developmental progression and how to actually move a team forward.
Yes. Not
just choosing the latest theory or cool, shiny thing.
Yes. What I'm hearing as well, and just let me know if this sounds accurate too. Once there's an understanding of the progression, there's acceptance of the progression. And with the radical acceptance of the fact of, that we can't jump to 10. Once we understand and see leadership in this way within ourselves, and even more importantly, in the society that we're a part of, right? We are more likely to, so like I struggled for many years, kind of early, especially in my early 20s, right? There was a very strong, the rebellious, the very strong. I was at a point where I was ready, but I was very angry at the misalignment. And
I remember.
and I wanted to just escape it. I actually was like, you know what? I'm out of here. This is the way the world works. And like, so it was, I kind of accepted it, but it was more pushing it away, refusing to see it, and feeling powerless, or just like, I just want to focus on me, right? Like, I just like, let's get back to like my extraordinary life. Like, let's get back to, this is too much. This is too much to take on. And there was a lot of resistance, but as the, right, and this is still something, like you said, I don't think it's necessarily always linear, but as we move along on the journey, there is a point of radical acceptance.
Yeah.
Of, we could evolve this fast. I actually think with the age of disruption and what we're going through right now, this is the collective catalyst. This is the big grieving death. This is the moment that triggers the alchemy. A rapid transformation is possible. We'll see how far it goes. But if we are able to do so much more when we accept the progression.
And we're able to accept the progression when our awareness expands to the point where it is just obvious.
Right. Yes.
It's not faith, and it's not blind faith. It is pure acceptance of reality based on our ability to see it and feel it and smell it. It's just the truth. We're confronted with the truth.
Yes. Yes. That reminds me actually too. So it's one of the not rebuttals, but the responses that I'll get sometimes when I talk about a network committed, thriving humanity future.
Yeah.
They're like, well, that's so idealistic. That's not grounded in reality. I say it's actually the most practical thing I can think of and do. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying I'm mad at the world for not being it.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying this is what I'm here to do, is to kind of talk about how do we get better. That's it. It's super practical. It's very much an acceptance. It's like, I don't know how else to process the world other than how do we have conversations about how to make it better. I don't think that that's an unrealistic conversation to be having.
No, it's the most essential conversation to be happening. And for you to establish a platform for that and a structure for that, that's how we move the world forward, right? It's not going to flip the whole world, right? People are still learning and going through their own stuff. We do not control others. We don't have that right, or that's not our responsibility. But for those, we were talking earlier, for those that have been doing some work and they're ready and desirous of this, this could be the catalyst that moves them to their next level.
Yes.
And we learn and grow through that. And now we spread that out into the world. We can, expand our reach that way. It's essential what you're doing.
Yeah, oh, thank you. You too. I mean, it's what we're all doing, right? At a certain point, it's different pieces of the puzzle.
It's just why we're here.
It's just why we're here. It's not it's just like, okay, I guess this is what it's supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. And I would love to engage the imagination a little bit. So the leadership revolution.
All right.
If it was accelerated, your book is Because Evolution is Too Slow, right? So there is an intention in articulating this journey.
Yes.
That we can accelerate it.
Yes.
What does an accelerated what sort of changes would you expect to see reflected in the world around us if we really did undergo this leadership revolution?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? What does it look like?
Got it. So we need this revolution because of the accelerating speed of change. And we're not able to keep pace with the slow evolutionary process. So for those who are here to serve the world, to their sort of largest expression, we need a revolution. We need the understanding of our AQ and our developmental progression. But I'm under sort of no illusions that everybody is going to do this, right? Because once again, people are learning and growing at their own pace. That's just how it works. But as you mentioned earlier, there are so many people that are wanting to move forward and that just are not quite clear yet about this pathway.
Yes.
And I want to make the point, this pathway is wide. The developmental progression is wide. There's plenty of room in there for your own personal expression of it, right? Your own unique level of leadership mastery is within this path. It's not a cookie cutter. It's a wide path forward. So what the world starts to look like is more and more people at all levels of society, friends and parents and people in high school and people in small businesses and people, these little pockets of people all over the planet, creating the most expanded, compassionate, supportive, growth-focused, heart-centered, awareness-centered experience for others. And really, that's it. I don't think it will save the planet or all these other things. It will position people to be able to be clear about who they are and why they're here.
Yes.
Be able to reach out and connect with other human beings and to help them do the same thing, so that we sort of collectively in small groups start to move things forward. And as the world goes through its ups and downs and pandemics, we're better positioned to move through with more ease and grace. It doesn't take the problems away. It doesn't make it perfect. It just positions us to serve to our best ability in whatever the outside circumstances present to us. We'll be able to love, grow, and serve each other at much higher levels, no matter what. So it looks like that.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, we'll continue this, but a lot of this, the Thriving Humanity brand concept, by the way, is this evolved leadership, is everybody serving at their highest creative leadership potential. It is. It's all that it is. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but in its simplest, in its simplest form, it is this journey, and then the unique creative expression of each individual actually being supported within the systems and the stories, so that can emerge and become right. We acknowledge that, Brian, you're gifted at this. You lead. I need you to lead here. I'm really gifted at this. This is something I've been working on. I'll lead here.
Yes.
Jane, you're really great at this. You lead here. And that we're all honoring and appreciating that unique expression of each leader. I do think we're on this journey. It'll be very interesting to see. I thought it was going to take a very long time, and then we had 2020. So I don't know. Yeah. It's possible this all goes much quicker.
It is.
All right. Well, one of the things that I like to do is we talk a lot of really big concepts on this show and engage the imagination and go to the big picture, right? The big scope of what's possible. What are some small steps? One small step. Okay, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to add one. Get Brian's book is step one. Yes, that's step one, to learn about the progression. What would be one or two small thought actions to take today?
There's so many things we could do. I put it in the context of the quote you read earlier. It all starts and ends with awareness, and everything in between is a function of our awareness quotient. If we just grab onto that, and start exploring our awareness, without any details on how to do it, just do it. Do what you are drawn to. There's thousands of practices out there to expand and get in touch with our awareness, our internal awareness, our external awareness, our connection with the deeper purpose of life itself. It's all out there. Focus on awareness, and we will be led to the next step for us, and the next and the next. So I would say, get to the foundation of it all. It is our awareness. I would rather share that with the group and leave that with the group than a technique or a tool. Ground yourself in awareness, and you will be moved forward in the right way for you. That's what I'd like to share.
Wonderful. Thank you. Is there a particular, not to bring it to techniques, but for your own awareness, what has helped you, what you would maybe recommend? Because I find people actually really struggle with awareness as a concept. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How do I practice it? How do I bring
Yeah.
more awareness into my life?
You know, the traditional time-tested, thousands of years everybody knows about is any form of meditation, contemplation, introspection, mindfulness, right? You know, at some point, I think most people have dropped any sort of connotation about that's fluffy, it's this or that. This is a foundational, essential practice. Einstein used contemplation to sort of get further into and get insights into quantum physics. This is just part of our gift to humanity, the gift. So to ignore it, I mean, we can if we want, but to ignore it is to limit it. So I would say, reach out, look for any form of meditation, contemplation, anything that speaks to you. And 1 second a day is all it takes. That will start to build some momentum to 2 seconds, right? In your environment where you can control everything. And then we start to bring it, take it from the cushion out into the world. So, you know, we really can't get around this one. We can talk about other techniques and tools, but foundationally, it is some form of meditation. This is the art of understanding ourselves and our environment and our connection to the source. So pick one, check it out, and the universe will join you and pull you forward from there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian, for contributing to the show today. I am just so grateful to have you. So excited to have this conversation on this day. It's just really, really special, and I thank you for doing it.
Thank you so much. You are doing such amazing work, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to learn from you and be in this dialogue with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brian. Stay on. I'm going to go ahead and close us out, and I'll see you in just a moment. Thank you to everyone for showing up for the show today. I hope that you learned a lot about awareness and feel empowered to go on your own leadership journey, and to know that there are a lot of people out there that are working on themselves in this way, that a leadership revolution is possible. I will see you next week. Reimagine Together is every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central. Thank you and goodbye.